Picture this. It is late. The room is dark. Your body is tired. And yet your mind will not stop. You have tried everything. Deep breaths, counting backward, thinking about nothing. But the harder you try to quiet your thoughts, the louder they become. There is a reason for this. And tonight, over the next few hours, we are going to sit with that reason together. Not to fix you, not to give you a technique that promises instant silence, but to help you understand what your mind is actually doing when it refuses to rest. The man who spent much of his life exploring this paradox was Alan Watts. Philosopher, writer, speaker, someone who could make ancient Eastern wisdom feel as accessible as a conversation over tea. He had a way of pointing to the obvious and making you realize you had never actually seen it before. And one of the things he kept returning to across decades of talks and writings was this. The problem is not that you think too much. The problem is that you are trying to control your thinking, and that trying is itself a form of thinking. It is like trying to smooth water by pressing down on it with your hand. The more you press, the more ripples you create. So what do you do instead? That is what we are here to explore. Not with answers that sound good, but do not work with something quieter, something that might shift how you relate to your own mind. Not just tonight, but in the weeks to come. Let your shoulders drop for a moment. You do not need to solve anything right now. You are exactly where you need to be. And we have plenty of time. Chapter 2, The Problem of Control. Here is the strange thing about the human mind. It is the only thing in existence that tries to control itself. Your heart does not try to beat correctly. Your lungs do not strategize about breathing. But your mind, the moment it becomes aware of itself, starts trying to manage itself. And that is where the trouble begins. Alan Watts called this the backwards law, the idea that the more you pursue something, the more it eludes you. The more you chase happiness, the more it slips away. The more you try to relax, the tenser you become. Because trying is effort, and effort creates tension. And tension is the opposite of what you were looking for in the first place. Think about falling asleep. You cannot force yourself to sleep. The harder you try, the more awake you become. Sleep arrives only when you stop trying, when you let go. But letting go is not a technique. It is not something you do. It is something that happens when you stop doing. And that is the paradox Watts kept circling back to. You cannot think your way out of overthinking. You cannot strategize your way into peace. Now notice what happens when you hear this. Part of you might feel relieved. Finally, someone is naming the thing you have been feeling for years. But another part of you might immediately start asking, okay, so how do I stop trying? What is the method for letting go? And there it is again, the mind trying to control the very thing that cannot be controlled. This is not a flaw in you. This is what minds do. They solve problems, they plan, they strategize. And when the mind turns that same energy on itself, it creates a loop that has no exit. Not because you are doing it wrong, but because the loop is built into the structure of self-awareness itself. Let the next breath come slower. You are not broken. You are just awake to something most people never notice. And that noticing, that awareness, is already the beginning of something different. Chapter 3: Thoughts as Weather. Imagine standing at a window, watching the weather. Clouds move across the sky. Some are dark, some are light. Rain comes, then it stops. The wind picks up, then it settles. You do not control any of this. You just watch. Alan Watts suggested that thoughts are like weather. They come, they go, they change shape, they move through, and you, the awareness, watching them, are like the sky. The sky does not resist the clouds. It does not try to push the rain away. It simply allows everything to pass through. But here is what most of us do instead. We see a dark thought and we panic. We see a painful memory and we try to bury it. We see anxiety rising and we fight it. We treat thoughts like enemies, like intruders in our own mind, and so we exhaust ourselves trying to control the weather inside our heads. But what if you stopped? What if, just for a moment, you let the thoughts be there without pushing them away, without grabbing onto them, without making them mean something about who you are? Not because you are giving up, but because you are recognizing something true. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which thoughts appear. This is not a metaphor. This is direct experience. Right now, as you listen to these words, thoughts are probably drifting through your mind. Maybe you are thinking about tomorrow. Maybe you are remembering something from today. Maybe you are wondering if this is actually going to help. And beneath all of that, there is the awareness noticing those thoughts. That awareness does not think, it simply sees. And it has been there your whole life. Calm, steady, unchanging. Even when your thoughts were screaming, feel the weight of your body where it rests. You do not need to change your thoughts. Just notice that you are noticing them. And in that noticing, something loosens. Chapter 4: The Thinking Mind Trap. There is a story Watts liked to tell. A man is trying to catch his shadow. He runs after it. The faster he runs, the faster the shadow moves. He cannot catch it, no matter how hard he tries. Finally, exhausted, he stops running. And when he stops, the shadow stops too. It was never separate from him in the first place. This is what the mind does with itself. It chases clarity. It chases peace. It chases the moment when everything will finally make sense. But clarity is not something you find by thinking harder. Peace is not the end result of solving every problem. And the moment when everything makes sense, that moment never comes. because the mind that is waiting for it is the same mind creating the confusion. You have probably had this experience. You lie awake at night replaying a conversation. You think, if only I had said this instead of that. You rewrite the dialogue, you sharpen your response. You imagine a version of the conversation where you come out looking better. And what happens? You feel worse. Because the replay is not solving anything, it is just rehearsing pain. The thinking mind believes it is helping. It believes that if it can just figure out the right thing to say, the right way to be, the right answer, then you will be safe. Then you will be okay. But the thinking mind cannot make you safe. It can only make you tired. Because safety is not a thought, it is a feeling. And the thinking mind does not feel. It only thinks about feeling. This is the trap. The more you think about your anxiety, the more anxious you become. The more you think about your sadness, the sadder you feel. Not because thinking is bad, but because thinking about an emotion is not the same as letting yourself feel it. Alan Watts had a phrase for this. He called it the double bind. You are stuck because you are trying to solve a problem that only exists because you are trying to solve it. And the way out is not another thought. It is stepping outside the loop entirely. Just for a moment, let your jaw soften. The loop is still there. The thoughts are still moving. But you, the one watching, are outside of it. And that space, that small gap between you and your thoughts, is where freedom lives. Chapter 5. Who is the thinker? Here is a question Alan Watts asked over and over in 100 different ways. Who is the one trying to control your thoughts? Think about it. When you say, I need to quiet my mind, who is the I that is separate from the mind? When you say, I am overthinking, who is the I that is watching the overthinking happen? There seems to be a thinker, a self, a person inside your head who is running the show. But when you look for that thinker, when you actually try to find the I behind the thoughts, it vanishes. Because the thinker is not a thing. It is a thought pretending to be a thing. This sounds abstract, but it is not. It is something you can verify right now. Close your eyes for a moment, or just let your gaze soften and ask yourself, who am I? Not your name, not your job, not your history, just who is the awareness experiencing this moment. Notice what happens when you ask. Thoughts will probably appear. I am a person lying in bed. I am someone who thinks too much. I am tired. But those are thoughts about yourself. They are not you. So go deeper. Who is aware of those thoughts? Keep looking, and you will find nothing. No solid self. No fixed center. Just awareness itself, watching the process unfold. This is not a problem. This is liberation. Because if there is no fixed self, then there is no one who needs to be in control. The thinker you have been trying to manage does not exist as a separate entity. It is just a story the mind tells itself to make sense of experience. And when you see through that story, even for a second, something shifts. You stop trying to control the uncontrollable. You stop fighting with your own mind. You stop waiting for the moment when you finally feel like you have it all together, because you realize there is no you that is separate from the flow of life itself. You are not a person having thoughts. You are awareness, noticing thoughts arising. And awareness does not struggle. It simply sees. Let your attention move to wherever your body feels heaviest. There is nothing to fix, nothing to become. You are already here, and you have always been here. Chapter 6. Ego as a story. The ego is not the villain. That is important to say first, because many spiritual teachings make it sound like the ego is something you need to destroy, transcend, or escape. But Alan Watts did not see it that way. He saw the ego as a story, a useful fiction, a way the mind organizes experience so you can navigate the world. The problem is not that the ego exists. The problem is that we forget it is a story. We start believing it is real. Think about your sense of self. It is built from memories, from the image you have of yourself, from the roles you play: parent, worker, partner, friend, from the things you like and dislike, from the fears and hopes you carry. All of that creates a sense of me, a continuous identity that seems to exist across time. But when you look closely, that me is not solid. It is a constantly shifting collection of thoughts, sensations, and memories that the mind stitches together into a narrative. And that narrative, that story, is what we call the ego. It is not wrong. It is not bad. But it is also not the whole truth. Watts used the metaphor of a knot in a rope. The knot looks like a separate thing. It has a shape, it has a form, but when you untie it, there is no knot. There is only rope. The ego is like that. It appears to be a separate self, distinct from the world. But when you look closely, there is no separation. There is only the flow of experience, momentarily organized into a pattern we call I. And here is why this matters for your restless mind. Most of your anxiety, your worry, your rumination, it is the ego trying to protect itself. It replays the argument because it believes your identity was threatened. It worries about the future because it believes you might not survive. It clings to the past because it believes that is where you are stored. But if the ego is just a story, if the self is not as solid as it seems, then what is there to protect? Not nothing, The body still needs care. Relationships still matter. Responsibilities still exist. But the urgency loosens. The fear softens. Because you realize the you have been defending so fiercely is not as fragile as you thought. It is just a wave on the ocean. And the wave does not need to fight to be a wave. It is already part of the water. Notice the air moving in and out. The ego is not the enemy. It is just a story that forgot it was a story. And when you remember, even for a breath, the whole game changes. Chapter 7. The Illusion of Separate Self. One of the deepest insights Alan Watts kept returning to was this: you are not separate from the world. You were taught to see yourself as an isolated individual, a skin-encapsulated ego, as Watts called it, moving through a foreign universe. But that is not actually true. You cannot exist without air, without food, without sunlight, without the earth beneath you and the atmosphere around you. You are not in the environment. You are part of the environment. Your body is made of the same elements as the stars. The oxygen you breathe was exhaled by trees. The water in your cells has moved through rivers, oceans, and clouds for billions of years. You are not a separate thing. You are a process, a verb, not a noun, a happening. And yet, from the moment you learned language, you were taught to see yourself as separate. I and the world. Subject and object. Inside and outside. That distinction is useful. It helps you navigate. It lets you plan. It allows you to say, I am hungry, and go find food. But it is also an illusion, a conceptual boundary drawn across a reality that has no actual edges. Alan Watts used to say, the universe is not something you look at, it is something you are. And when that sinks in, not as an idea, but as a felt sense, everything changes. The loneliness you carry starts to soften, because you realize you were never truly alone. You are a part of everything that is. The pressure to control your life eases, because you see that control is an illusion. You are not steering the ship. You are the ocean pretending to be a wave. The fear of death loses some of its weight, because if you are not separate from the universe, then what is there to end? The wave returns to the water, but the water was always there. This is not a comforting belief. It is a direct recognition. Right now, as you listen, you are breathing, but you are not making yourself breathe. Your heart is beating, but you are not telling it to beat. Life is living you. And the separate self, the one who feels responsible for everything, the one who is always trying to keep it together, that self is just a thought. a useful thought, but still just a thought. Feel your feet on the ground, or the back of your head against the pillow. You are held. You have always been held, not by a person, not by a force, but by the same reality that holds the stars in place. And you do not need to understand it. You just need to let it be true. Chapter 8. Language and Reality. Language is how we make sense of the world. It gives us words for things, categories, names. It lets us share ideas, tell stories, remember the past, imagine the future. But Alan Watts spent much of his life pointing to a problem most people never notice. Language also creates distance between you and reality. The moment you name something, you are no longer experiencing it directly. You are experiencing your thought about it. Think about this. You see a tree. The moment you think the word tree, something shifts. You are no longer seeing the tree itself, the texture of the bark, the movement of the leaves, the way the light filters through the branches. You are seeing a labeled object, a concept. The word tree is not the tree. It is a symbol, a sound, a mental shortcut. And that shortcut is useful. It helps you communicate. It helps you think. But it also separates you from the living, breathing reality in front of you. This is what happens with your inner experience too. You feel a sensation in your chest. Immediately, the mind labels it anxiety. And now you are no longer feeling the sensation. You are thinking about the label. You are remembering other times you felt anxious. You are worrying about what it means. You are trying to make it go away. The word anxiety is not the feeling. It is your thought about the feeling. And the moment you name it, you create distance. You turn a flowing, changing sensation into a fixed thing. An enemy, a problem to solve. But what if you did not name it? What if you just felt it without calling it anything? The sensation is still there, but it is no longer anxiety. It is just energy, movement, tightness, warmth, vibration. And when you stop labeling it, something strange happens. It changes, it softens, it moves. Because it was never a fixed thing in the first place. It was only fixed by the name you gave it. Alan Watts used to say, "The menu is not the meal." You can read a menu all day long. You can memorize every dish, every ingredient, every description, but that will not fill your stomach. The same is true for your life. You can think about peace, you can talk about it, you can read books about it, but until you stop thinking and start experiencing, you will never actually taste it. Let your jaw soften. You do not need to name what you are feeling right now. You can just let it be. And in that unnamed space, something real begins. Chapter 9. Naming isn't knowing. There is a difference between knowing about something and knowing it. You can know about swimming, the mechanics, the technique, the benefits. But until you get in the water, you do not actually know what swimming feels like. Alan Watts made this distinction often. He called it the difference between the map and the territory. The map is useful. It gives you directions. It shows you where things are. But the map is not the place. And yet, most of us spend our lives studying the map. We collect ideas about life. We think about experiences. We analyze our feelings. We read about enlightenment, peace, love, freedom. But we rarely stop to actually live them, because living them means letting go of the map, and that is terrifying. The mind wants certainty. It wants to know what will happen next. It wants a plan, a strategy, a path. But life is not a plan. It is a happening. And the only way to know it is to stop thinking about it and start feeling it. This is why you can read 100 books about anxiety and still feel anxious. Why you can listen to countless talks about letting go and still hold on. Why you can understand, intellectually, that you are not your thoughts, and still believe them completely. Because understanding is not the same as realizing. Understanding happens in the mind. Realization happens in the body, in the bones, in the gut. It is the difference between hearing someone describe the taste of honey and actually tasting it yourself. Alan Watts was not trying to give you more ideas. He was trying to point you toward direct experience. He was saying, stop thinking about your life and start living it. Stop analyzing your breath and just breathe. Stop trying to figure out peace and just be still. Not because thinking is bad, but because thinking about life is not the same as living it. And your restless mind, the one that will not stop at night, is often just a mind that has forgotten how to stop mapping and start walking. Notice the weight of your own body. You do not need to think about being here. You are already here, and that here is the only place where anything real has ever happened. Chapter 10. Time, Memory, Anticipation. Here is something strange. The past does not exist. The future does not exist. And yet, your mind spends most of its time in one or the other, replaying yesterday, planning tomorrow, regretting what happened, worrying about what might. Alan Watts called this the illusion of time. Not that time is not real. Clocks exist. Calendars exist. Cause and effect exist. But the past and future you are thinking about, those are mental constructs, thoughts, images, stories. The only time that is actually real is now, and now is not a moment in time. It is the absence of time. It is the space in which everything happens. Think about your own experience. Every memory you have ever had, you experienced it now. Every plan you have ever made, you thought about it now. Every moment of your life has happened in the present. The past is a memory arising now. The future is an imagination arising now. There is only now. There has only ever been now. And yet your mind resists this. Because the mind is built to move through time, to learn from the past, to plan for the future, to connect cause and effect. That is not the problem. The problem is when you confuse the map of time with the territory of now. When you believe the story of your past is who you are. When you believe the anxiety about the future is a real prediction of what will happen. It is not. It is just thought happening now. And when you see that, when you really see it, a strange peace arrives. Not because your problems disappear, but because you realize they were never real in the first place. They were only thoughts about problems. Right now, in this moment, is there actually a problem? Not the problem you were thinking about yesterday, not the one you are worried about tomorrow. Right now, feel the air moving in and out. Right now, you are breathing. You are safe. You are alive. And that is all there ever is. The rest is just the mind, pacing through memories and fantasies, creating suffering out of thin air. Chapter 11. Anxiety as Future Fantasy. Let us sit with anxiety for a moment, not to fix it, not to push it away, just to understand what it actually is. Alan Watts described anxiety as the mind creating a future that does not exist, and then reacting to it as if it does. You imagine something going wrong, a conversation, a diagnosis, a rejection, a loss, and your body responds as if it is happening right now. Your heart races, your chest tightens, your breath quickens, but nothing is actually happening. You are lying in bed. The room is quiet. You are safe. And yet your nervous system is in full alarm mode, not because of reality, but because of a story. This is what anxiety is. It is the body responding to a thought as if it were a fact. And the more you think about the thought, the more real it feels, until you are completely convinced that the disaster you are imagining is inevitable. But it is not. It is just imagination. And imagination is not prophecy. Alan Watts used to say, worrying is like praying for what you do not want. You are rehearsing disaster. You are practicing suffering. You are living through pain that has not happened and may never happen. And even if it does happen, worrying about it now does not prepare you. It only exhausts you. Because suffering twice, once in imagination, once in reality, is not wisdom. It is just suffering twice. So, what do you do instead? You bring your attention back to now. Not as a technique, not as a way to fix your anxiety, but as a simple recognition of what is actually true. Right now, in this moment, you are okay. You are breathing. You are here. The future you are worried about, it is not here. It is a thought, and you do not have to believe every thought that passes through your mind. Let your shoulders drop. You do not need to solve tomorrow, tonight. You just need to be here, now. And if anxiety is still there, let it be there. You do not have to fight it. It is just a sensation, energy moving through your body. And, like all sensations, it will change. You are not your anxiety. You are the awareness, noticing it. And awareness is always calm. Chapter 12. The Art of Letting Go. Letting go is not something you do. This is the paradox that stops most people. They hear "let go" and immediately start trying to let go. They make it a project, a task, something to accomplish. But trying to let go is still holding on. It is still effort, still control. Alan Watts talked about this often. He said, "Letting go is like falling asleep. You cannot make yourself fall asleep. You cannot force it. The harder you try, the more awake you become. Sleep happens when you stop trying, when you give up, when you let go of the need to fall asleep. The same is true for the mind. You cannot make your thoughts stop. You cannot force your mind to be quiet. You cannot will yourself into peace. Peace happens when you stop trying to create peace. This does not mean giving up. It does not mean passive resignation. It means recognizing that some things cannot be controlled, and that trying to control them only makes them worse. Think about holding water in your hand. If you clench your fist tightly, trying to keep the water from escaping, it slips through your fingers. But if you hold your hand open, gently, the water stays. Letting go is like that. It is not abandonment. It is opening your hand. You are still there, still aware, still present, but the grip loosens. And in that loosening, space appears. Space for things to move, to change, to settle. This is what your mind needs at night. Not more control, not more effort, not more strategies for how to quiet your thoughts. It needs you to stop trying, to stop gripping, to let the thoughts move like clouds across the sky. They will pass. They always do. But only if you let them. Feel the next breath move through you. You are not making it happen. It is happening on its own. And that is how life works. When you stop forcing, it flows. Chapter 13, Wu Wei, Effortless Action. There is a concept in Taoism that Alan Watts loved, Wu Wei. It is often translated as effortless action or non-doing, but that makes it sound passive, like doing nothing. It is not that. Wu Wei is action that flows naturally. Action without struggle, without forcing, without self-consciousness. Think about a time when you were completely absorbed in something. Maybe you were cooking, or walking, or playing music, or having a conversation. You were not thinking about what to do next. You were not watching yourself do it. You were just doing it. That is Wu Wei. It is the state where the doer and the doing disappear, where there is no separation between you and the action. And it is the most effective way to live. Because when you stop trying so hard, you stop getting in your own way. Alan Watts used the metaphor of swimming. When you first learn to swim, you fight the water. You tense up. You try to stay afloat by effort alone. And you sink. But once you learn to relax, to let the water hold you, swimming becomes effortless. You stop fighting. You start flowing. The same is true for your mind. When you fight your thoughts, you create more thoughts. When you try to force yourself to relax, you create more tension. But when you let go, when you stop fighting, the mind naturally settles. Not because you made it settle, but because settling is what water does when you stop stirring it. This is the art of Wu Wei. Not forcing, not controlling, just allowing. And it is not weakness, it is not laziness, it is the deepest kind of strength, because it takes courage to stop controlling. It takes trust to let things unfold. It takes wisdom to know when effort is helpful and when it only makes things worse. Notice where your body touches what is beneath you. You are not holding yourself up. The ground is holding you. The air is breathing you. Life is living you. And you do not need to force any of it. It is already happening. Chapter 14, Trying Not to Try. Here is the paradox. The moment you try not to try, you are trying. The moment you try to let go, you are holding on. The moment you try to be in the now, you are thinking about the now, which takes you out of the now. This is the trap of spiritual practice. And Alan Watts saw it clearly. People come to meditation, to mindfulness, to philosophy, looking for peace. And what do? They make peace into a goal, something to achieve, something to get. And so they sit there, trying very hard to be relaxed, trying very hard to stop thinking, trying very hard to just be. And it does not work, because trying is the opposite of being. So, what do? You see the trap. You see the paradox. You see that trying not to try is still trying. And then you stop taking it so seriously. You laugh at yourself. You see the cosmic joke. You realize that the person trying to become enlightened is the very thing standing in the way of enlightenment. Because enlightenment is not something you achieve, it is something you already are. You have just forgotten. You are already here, already whole, already free. The only thing in the way is the one trying to get there. And when you see that, when you really see it, the whole game collapses. You stop chasing. You stop trying, not because you gave up, but because you realized there was nowhere to go. You were already home. This does not mean you stop practicing. It does not mean you stop meditating or reflecting or trying to live well. It just means you stop making it into a desperate search. You stop believing that peace is somewhere else, in some future moment, after you have finally done enough. You are enough now. The moment is enough now. And that recognition is the only thing that was ever missing. Let your jaw soften. There is nowhere to get to, nothing to become. You are already here. And here is enough. Chapter 15. Meditation without struggle. Meditation is often taught as something you do. Sit down, close your eyes, focus on your breath. If your mind wanders, bring it back, and that is fine. That is a technique. It can be helpful. But Alan Watts approached meditation differently. He did not see it as something you do. He saw it as something you stop doing. Meditation is not about concentrating. It is about letting go of the need to concentrate. It is not about controlling your thoughts. It is about watching your thoughts without interfering. It is not about achieving a special state. It is about recognizing the state you are already in. You do not need to sit in a special position. You do not need silence. You do not need incense or candles or soft music. You just need to stop and watch. Watch your thoughts. Watch your breath. Watch sensations rise and fall in your body. But do not try to change them. Do not judge them. Do not grab onto the good ones or push away the bad ones. Just watch. Like sitting by a river, watching the water flow. You are not making the river move. You are not stopping it. You are just there, watching. And in that watching, something shifts. You realize you are not the thoughts. You are the awareness watching the thoughts. You realize you are not the anxiety. You are the space in which anxiety appears. You realize you are not the story. You are the silence beneath the story. And that silence, that awareness, is always calm. It has never been disturbed. It has been there your whole life, untouched by anything that has happened to you. That is what meditation reveals. Not something new, something that was always there. You do not need to do it perfectly. You do not need to do it for hours. You do not even need to call it meditation. You just need to stop for a moment and notice. Notice that you are here. Notice that you are breathing. Notice that awareness is present. That is all. And in that simple noticing, the struggle ends. Chapter 16. Watching the mind clearly. There is a difference between thinking and watching yourself think. Most of the time, you are identified with your thoughts. You believe them, you follow them, you become them. But when you step back just slightly, you can watch them instead. This is not detachment. It is not cold observation. It is clear seeing. Alan Watts compared it to watching a play. You can get lost in the story, believing it is real, feeling the emotions of the characters. Or you can remember you are in a theatre. You can watch the play unfold, appreciate the performance, but know it is not real. The same is true for your mind. When you watch your thoughts clearly, you see them for what they are: passing events, mental activity, not truth, not prophecy, just thoughts. And that changes everything. Because when you stop believing every thought, they lose their power. They stop controlling you. They stop defining you. You are no longer the person who is anxious. You are the awareness noticing anxiety. You are no longer the person who is overthinking. You are the awareness noticing overthinking. And awareness, pure awareness, is not anxious. It is not overthinking. It is simply aware. This is not something you need to achieve. It is something you already are. You have just been so busy thinking that you forgot to notice the awareness itself. So, how do you watch the mind clearly? You do not try. You just notice. Notice when a thought appears. Notice the content. Notice the feeling it creates. Notice if you believe it or question it, but do not interfere. Do not judge. Do not make it a problem. Just watch. And over time, slowly, gently, the thoughts lose their grip. They still come. They still move. But they no longer drag you along with them. You are free, not because your mind changed, but because you stopped identifying with it. Feel your breath moving in and out. You are not breathing. Breathing is happening, and you are aware of it. That awareness is what you are. Everything else is just weather passing through. Chapter 17, Desire, Aversion, Restlessness. Buddhism teaches that suffering comes from two things: wanting what you do not have and not wanting what you do have. Alan Watts framed this in simple terms. He said, "You suffer when you resist reality. When you want this moment to be different than it is, you create suffering. It does not matter if the moment is pleasant or unpleasant. If you are clinging to it, resisting it, or wishing it was something else, you suffer." Think about your own restlessness. You lie in bed wanting sleep, but sleep does not come, and so you suffer, not because you are awake, but because you want to be asleep. You feel anxious. You want the anxiety to go away, and so you suffer, not because of the anxiety, but because you are fighting it. You remember a painful moment. You wish it had never happened, and so you suffer, not because of the memory, but because you are refusing to accept that it did happen. This is the root of restlessness, not the experiences themselves, but your resistance to them. And the way out is not to stop wanting things. It is to stop fighting with reality. Acceptance does not mean approval. It does not mean giving up. It does not mean you like what is happening. It just means you stop arguing with the fact that it is happening. You are awake. Okay. That is the reality. Fighting it will not change it. Accepting it might let your body relax enough to actually fall asleep. You are anxious. Okay. That is what is present right now. Hating the anxiety will not make it go away. Allowing it to be there might let it move through. This is what Alan Watts meant by going with the flow, not passivity, not surrender to suffering, but alignment with reality, working with what is instead of against it, because reality always wins. You can fight it for a lifetime, but it will not change just because you want it to. The only thing that changes is you, your relationship to it, your resistance or your acceptance. And when you stop resisting, when you let things be exactly as they are, the restlessness fades. Not because the situation changed, but because you stopped making it a problem. Let your shoulders drop. Whatever you are feeling right now, you do not need to change it. You can just let it be. And in that letting, peace arrives, not as something you created, but as something that was always there. Chapter 18. Pleasure, pain, and clinging. Life is a mix of pleasant and unpleasant experiences. That is just how it is. Sometimes you feel good. Sometimes you feel bad. Sometimes you feel nothing in particular. The problem is not the feelings. The problem is the clinging. You have a good moment. You want it to last. You try to hold on to it. And when it fades, as all moments do, you suffer. You have a bad moment. You want it to end. You resist it. And in resisting it, you amplify it. You make it worse. Alan Watts pointed to this constantly. He said, "Suffering is not pain. Suffering is the refusal to accept pain. Pain is part of life. Bodies age. People leave. Things break. Loss is inevitable. But suffering, the mental anguish that comes with pain, is optional. It is created by clinging to what is pleasant and resisting what is unpleasant. Think about a pleasant memory, maybe a perfect day, a moment of joy, a time when everything felt right. Now notice what the mind does. It wants to go back there. It compares every other day to that day. It feels sad that it is over. That sadness is not because the moment was good. It is because you are clinging to it, refusing to let it be in the past. The same is true for unpleasant moments. Something painful happened. The mind replays it, analyzes it, tries to figure out how to prevent it from happening again. And that replaying, that resistance, keeps the pain alive. You are no longer experiencing the original pain. You are experiencing the pain of refusing to let it go. So what do? You let things come and go. You let the pleasant moments be pleasant without trying to hold them. You let the unpleasant moments be unpleasant without trying to push them away. You let life move. Like water, like weather, like breath. And in that movement, you find ease. Not because life becomes all pleasure, but because you stop fighting with the nature of life itself. Feel the air moving in and out. It comes, it goes. You do not hold on to it. You do not push it away. And that is how everything works. When you let it, chapter 19, the paradox of acceptance. Here is the paradox. The moment you accept something, it often changes. Not because acceptance is a technique, not because you are trying to manipulate reality, but because acceptance removes the tension that was keeping it stuck. Think about anxiety. When you fight anxiety, it grows. When you accept it, when you say, okay, I am anxious, and that is fine, it often softens. Not always, not immediately. But over time, it loses its power. Because anxiety feeds on resistance, on the belief that it should not be there, on the fear that something is wrong. But when you accept it, you remove the fuel. You stop feeding it. And without that fuel, it burns itself out. Alan Watts called this the law of reversed effort. The things you resist persist. The things you accept transform. Not because acceptance is magic, but because resistance creates tension, and tension locks things in place. When you stop resisting, the tension releases, and whatever was stuck begins to move. This is true for emotions, for thoughts, for situations. The more you fight them, the more stuck they become. The more you accept them, the more they shift. But here is the catch. You cannot accept something in order to change it. That is still resistance in disguise. True acceptance is saying, this is how it is. I may not like it, I may hope it changes, but right now this is the reality, and I am not going to fight it. And in that surrender, that letting go of the need for it to be different, space appears. Space for change, space for movement, space for something new. But you cannot force it. You can only allow it. Notice where your body touches what is beneath you. You are held. You have always been held, not by control, but by allowing. And when you allow, life flows. Chapter 20, Suffering and Resistance. Alan Watts once said, "Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional." This is not a dismissal of pain. Pain is real. Physical pain, emotional pain, loss, grief, heartbreak. But suffering, the mental story we build around pain, that is where we add extra weight. Pain says, "This hurts." Suffering says, "This should not be happening. This is unfair. This means something is wrong with me. This will never end." Pain is clean, direct, immediate. Suffering is layered, complicated, repetitive. And the difference between the two is resistance. When you resist pain, you create suffering. When you allow pain to be there without the story, without the judgment, without the need for it to be different, it is just pain. And pain moves. Think about a difficult emotion. Sadness, for example. Sadness is a feeling. A heaviness in the chest, a tightness in the throat, a wetness in the eyes. But suffering around sadness sounds like this. "I should not feel this way. What is wrong with me? Why can I not just be happy? I am so weak." That internal monologue is not sadness. It is resistance to sadness. And that resistance creates suffering. If you let the sadness be there, if you feel it fully, without the story, it moves through, it rises, it peaks, it fades. But if you resist it, if you judge it, if you try to push it away, it stays, it gets stuck, it becomes part of your identity. "I am a sad person. I am always struggling. I cannot handle life." Those are stories, not truths. And when you stop resisting the feeling, the story loses its grip. This is not about positive thinking. It is not about pretending everything is fine. It is about meeting your experience with honesty. This is hard. And it is okay that this is hard. That is acceptance. And acceptance does not make the pain go away, but it does remove the suffering you add on top of it. Let your jaw soften. Whatever you are carrying right now, you do not need to resist it. You can just let it be there. And in that space of allowing, the weight shifts. Not because you solved it, but because you stopped fighting it. Chapter 21, The Cosmic Joke. There is a point in the spiritual journey where you realize you have been chasing something you already have. You have been searching for peace, for freedom, for wholeness, and the entire time you already were whole. You just did not notice. Alan Watts called this the cosmic joke. You spend years, maybe decades, trying to become enlightened. You meditate, you read, you practice, you work on yourself. And then one day you realize there was never anything to work on. You were already it. The seeker and the sought were the same thing. You were looking for yourself, and you could not find yourself because you were the one looking. It is like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror. They are always there, but you cannot look at them directly. The same is true for your true nature. You are awareness. You are the space in which everything happens. You have always been that. You will always be that. But you spent so much time identifying with thoughts, with the body, with the ego, that you forgot. And now, after all that searching, you come back to the beginning. And you see it clearly for the first time. You were never lost. You just thought you were. This is the cosmic joke. And it is funny. Truly funny. Not in a cruel way. In a playful way. Like hide and seek, where you realize you were never really hiding. The universe is playing a game with itself. Pretending to be separate. Pretending to be lost. And then waking up to the fact that it was never separate in the first place. You are that game. You are the universe, experiencing itself, forgetting itself, remembering itself. And the moment you see that, the moment you really get the joke, the search ends. Not because you found what you were looking for, but because you realized you were never missing anything. You are whole. You have always been whole. And that recognition is the end of suffering. Not because life becomes perfect, but because you stop needing it to be. Notice the air moving in and out. You are here. You have always been here, and there is nowhere else to be. Chapter 22. You are the universe. This is not a metaphor. You are not like the universe. You are not connected to the universe. You are the universe. Every atom in your body was forged in the heart of a dying star. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the oxygen in your lungs. You are made of stardust. Literally. And the same laws that govern the motion of planets govern the beating of your heart. You are not separate from nature. You are nature, expressing itself in human form. Alan Watts said it this way: you are an aperture through which the universe is looking at itself and exploring itself. Think about that. The universe, everything that is, does not have a central location. It is not looking at you from outside. It is looking through you. Your eyes are the universe seeing. Your ears are the universe hearing. Your thoughts are the universe thinking. You are not in the universe. The universe is in you, or more accurately, there is no separation. This is not pantheism. It is not spirituality. It is physics. It is biology. It is fact. And when you realize this, when it moves from concept to direct experience, everything changes. Loneliness dissolves because you were never alone. You are everything. Fear softens because there is nowhere to fall. You are the ground. Meaning appears because you are not an accident. You are the universe expressing itself as you. And that is not small, that is vast. That is sacred. You do not need to believe this. You can verify it. Right now, you are breathing air that has moved through the lungs of every person who has ever lived. You are drinking water that has flowed through rivers, oceans, clouds for billions of years. You are not separate. You have never been separate. And when you see that, when you feel it, the whole game changes. You stop trying to protect this small, isolated self because you realize there is no small, isolated self. There is only the whole, and you are it. Feel the weight of your own body. That weight is the weight of the universe, holding itself, knowing itself, and it is perfect, just as it is. Chapter 23, Self and World Interwoven. The boundary between you and the world is an illusion, not a useful illusion, not a metaphor, a literal illusion. Where does your body end and the environment begin? Is it at your skin? But your skin is constantly exchanging air, water, heat with the environment. It is not a solid boundary, it is a membrane. Is it at your breath? But the air you breathe becomes part of you, and the air you exhale becomes part of the world. Is it at your thoughts? But your thoughts are shaped by language, culture, relationships, all of which came from outside you. There is no clean line, no edge, no separation. You are a process, a flow, a pattern of energy and matter that is constantly changing, constantly exchanging with the environment. Alan Watts used the analogy of a wave and the ocean. The wave appears to be a separate thing. It has a crest, a shape, a movement, but it is not separate from the ocean. It is the ocean temporarily expressing itself as a wave. You are like that. You appear to be a separate individual, but you are not separate from the universe. You are the universe, temporarily expressing itself as you. And when you see this, when you really get it, the loneliness that most people carry begins to dissolve. Because you realize you are not an isolated atom floating through a void. You are a part of everything, connected to everything, woven into the fabric of existence itself. This is not a comforting belief. It is a direct recognition. Right now, you are held by the earth, warmed by the sun, sustained by the air, fed by plants and animals that gave their life so you could live. You are not independent. You are interdependent. And that interdependence is not a weakness. It is the truth of what you are. You are not separate, and you never have been. Notice the stillness around you. That stillness is not empty. It is full, full of connection, full of relationship, full of life. And you are part of it, always have been, always will be. Chapter 24. Death and the Present. Death is not the enemy. Alan Watts spent a lot of time talking about death, not in a morbid way, but as a way to understand life. Because when you see death clearly, you see life clearly. Most people are afraid of death, and that fear shapes everything. It makes you cling to life. It makes you avoid risk. It makes you play small. But what is death, really? It is the end of the pattern called you. The end of the thoughts, the memories, the identity. The end of the separate self. But the energy that makes up your body, that does not disappear. It returns to the earth, to the air, to the cycle of life. You are not destroyed, you are transformed. And if you are not separate from the universe, if you are the universe expressing itself as you, then death is just the universe rearranging itself. The wave returns to the ocean, but the ocean does not die. This is not a comforting fantasy. It is the natural cycle of existence. Everything that lives dies. Everything that is born ends. That is not a tragedy. That is just how things work. And when you accept that, when you stop fighting it, something shifts. You stop postponing life. You stop waiting for the right moment. You stop living in fear of loss, because you realize this moment is all you have, and it is enough. Alan Watts said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive." It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. You do not need to achieve anything. You do not need to become anything. You are already alive, right now. And that is the whole point. Death does not diminish life. It intensifies it. It gives it weight. It makes every moment precious. Because you know, deeply know, that this will not last forever. And so you pay attention. You notice. You are here. Let your breath move through you. You are alive right now. And that is a miracle. Not because it lasts forever, but because it is happening at all. Chapter 25, Fear as Misidentification. Most fear comes from a single mistake. You think you are the body. You think you are the thoughts. You think you are the ego. And so you believe that when they end, you end. But Alan Watts pointed to something different. You are not the body. You are the awareness experiencing the body. You are not the thoughts. You are the space in which thoughts appear. You are not the ego. You are the vastness pretending to be small. And awareness does not die. It does not age. It does not change. It is always here, always now, always present. This is not a belief. It is something you can verify. Right now, notice awareness. Not the content of awareness, the thoughts, the sensations, the sounds, just awareness itself. It is here. It has been here your whole life. It will be here until the end. And it does not change. The body changes. Thoughts change. Emotions change. But awareness, pure awareness, is constant. That is what you are, not the changing content, but the unchanging context. And if that is true, if you are awareness itself, then death is not the end of you. It is the end of the pattern you identified with, the end of the story, but not the end of awareness. Awareness does not die. It simply stops being focused through this particular body, this particular mind. And where does it go? Nowhere. Because it was never somewhere in the first place. It returns to the source, to the vastness, to the undifferentiated whole. This is not reincarnation. It is not heaven. It is not anything you can imagine. It is just what is, beyond concepts, beyond language, beyond fear. And when you realize this, when you stop identifying with the small temporary self, fear loses its grip. Not because you are no longer afraid, but because you see through the misidentification that created the fear in the first place. You are not what you thought you were, and that is the most liberating thing you will ever discover. Notice the space around you. That space is not empty. It is aware. And you are it. Chapter 26. The Game of Life. Life is serious, and life is play. Both are true. And the key is knowing which perspective to hold in any given moment. Alan Watts talked about life as a game. Not a trivial game, not a meaningless game, but a game nonetheless. A game has rules, it has stakes, it has wins and losses, but it is still a game. And the point of a game is not to win. The point is to play. Think about a child playing. They are completely absorbed. They care deeply about the outcome. But they also know at some level that it is pretend. They are not their character. They are just playing a role. And when the game ends, they let it go. They do not carry the loss into the next day. They move on. Adults forget how to do this. They take life too seriously. They forget it is a game. They identify completely with the role. They believe the wins and losses are who they are. And so they suffer because they have forgotten how to play. Alan Watts was not saying life does not matter. He was saying, do not confuse the game with reality. Play your role fully. Care about the outcome. But do not forget you are not the role. You are the player. And when the game ends, as all games do, you will be fine. Because you were never just the character. This is not nihilism. It is not apathy. It is perspective. It is the ability to hold two truths at once. This matters and this is temporary. This is important. and this is just a game. This is real, and this is illusion. And in that paradox, you find freedom. You can care deeply without being crushed by loss. You can try without being destroyed by failure. You can live fully without clinging desperately to life. Because you remember, this is a game. And the whole point is to play. Let your shoulders drop. You are playing a role, and you are playing it beautifully. But do not forget, you are also the one watching the play, and that part of you is free. Chapter 27, Seriousness and Play. Seriousness is the enemy of wisdom, not responsibility, not care, not intention, but seriousness. The heavy, grim belief that everything depends on you getting it right. Alan Watts saw this clearly. He saw people treating life like a test they had to pass, like a burden they had to carry, like a problem they had to solve. And he said, "You have missed the point. Life is not a problem. It is a dance. It is music. It is play. And the moment you treat it like a problem, you lose the joy of it." Think about dancing. If you approach dancing as a problem, am I doing this right? Do I look foolish? Am I good enough? You cannot dance. You are too busy worrying. But if you let go of the need to do it right, if you just move, then you are dancing. And it does not matter if you are good at it. The point is the movement itself. The same is true for life. If you approach life as a problem to solve, you will spend your whole life solving, and you will miss the living. But if you approach life as something to experience, to explore, to enjoy, then you are living. And it does not matter if you do it perfectly, because there is no perfect. There is only this, right now. Alan Watts was not advocating for irresponsibility. He was advocating for lightness. Do what needs to be done, but do it with grace, with humor, with the understanding that it is all temporary anyway. Take your work seriously, but do not take yourself seriously. Care about the outcome, but do not let the outcome define you. Try your best, but do not believe your best is ever going to be enough to control life. Because life is not controllable, it is not predictable, it is not safe, and that is not a problem. That is the nature of it. When you stop needing life to be different, you can finally enjoy it as it is. Notice the air moving in and out. You are alive right now, and that is not a problem. It is a gift. Play with it, dance with it, let it move through you. And when it ends, as all things do, you will have lived fully, deeply, without regret. Chapter 28, Love Without Possession. Love is not ownership. This is something Alan Watts returned to often, because most people confuse love with possession. They say, "I love you," and they mean, "I need you. I want to keep you. You are mine." But that is not love. That is fear. Love is the recognition of the other as they are, without needing them to be different, without needing them to stay, without needing them to fulfill you. True love is spacious. It gives freedom. It does not cling. Think about how you love a sunset. You do not try to capture it. You do not demand it stay longer. You do not feel betrayed when it ends. You simply appreciate it while it is here. And when it fades, you let it go with gratitude, with peace. That is love without possession. It is the ability to appreciate something fully without needing to control it. And it is the hardest thing most people will ever learn, because the mind wants to hold on to what it loves. It wants guarantees. It wants permanence. But love and permanence are incompatible. Everything changes. Everyone leaves. Every relationship ends, either through distance, through change, or through death. And if you cling, if you try to stop that change, you turn love into suffering. But if you let go, if you love without grasping, then love becomes pure. It is no longer about what you get, it is about what you give. And in that giving, you find something deeper than possession. You find connection, you find presence, you find the recognition that we are all part of the same whole. Alan Watts said, "To have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float." The same is true for love. If you grab, you sink. If you relax, you float. And floating is not passive. It is the most active kind of trust. Let your jaw soften. You do not need to hold on to anything. You can let it all move, let it all flow. And in that flow, you will find more love than you ever found in holding on. Chapter 29, Compassion without Pity. Compassion is not feeling sorry for someone. Pity looks down. Compassion looks across. Pity says, "You are suffering and I am not. Poor you." Compassion says, "You are suffering. I have suffered too. I see you." Alan Watts made this distinction clear. Because pity creates separation. Compassion creates connection. When you pity someone, you place yourself above them. You are the one who has it together. They are the one who is broken. But when you feel compassion, you recognize, I am not separate from this person. Their suffering is my suffering, because we are all part of the same whole. This is not just a nice idea, it is the truth. You are not separate. What hurts them hurts you. What heals them heals you. And when you see that, when you feel it, compassion arises naturally. Not as an obligation, not as a moral duty, but as a recognition. That is me, in a different body, in a different situation, but still me. This is why true compassion does not drain you. It fills you. Because when you help someone from a place of compassion, you are not giving something away. You are recognizing your shared humanity. And that recognition is healing. For both of you, pity, on the other hand, is exhausting because it requires you to maintain the illusion of separation. to keep the boundary between me and them intact. But compassion dissolves that boundary, and in that dissolution, energy flows, connection happens, healing begins. Alan Watts said, "Compassion is the keen awareness of the interdependence of all things. When you see that everything is connected, when you feel it in your bones, you cannot help but care. Not because you should, but because it is natural, like breathing. And that care is not sentimental. It is clear-eyed. It sees suffering. It does not look away. But it also sees the potential for transformation, for growth, for healing. It does not rescue. It does not fix. It simply holds space. And in that space, something shifts. Notice the stillness around you. You are not alone. You have never been alone. And the suffering you carry, someone else has carried it too. You are held by the same reality that holds everyone, and that holding is compassion. Not from outside, but from within, from the shared ground of being itself. Chapter 30. Society, Status and Masks. You wear a mask every day. Not a physical mask, a social mask, a persona. It is the version of yourself you present to the world. The polished self, the acceptable self, the self that fits. And there is nothing wrong with that. Masks are necessary. They help you navigate social situations. They protect your vulnerability. But the problem is, when you forget you are wearing a mask, when you start to believe the mask is who you are. Alan Watts called this the persona trap. You become so identified with the role you play, the successful professional, the good parent, the strong friend, that you lose touch with the person underneath. And then, late at night, when the mask comes off, you do not recognize yourself. You feel empty, hollow, like an imposter in your own life. Because you have been performing for so long, you have forgotten how to just be. This is especially true in modern society, where status matters, where image matters, where success is measured by external markers, money, title, appearance, influence. You are taught to build a self that looks good, that impresses others, that wins approval, but that self is not real. It is a construction, a story, a mask, and the more you invest in it, the more fragile you become, because you are building your identity on something external, something that can be taken away. Alan Watts saw this clearly. He said, "Society is a hoax." Not that society does not exist, but that the values society teaches you, the need for status, for approval, for success, those are not inherent truths. They are just stories, agreed upon fictions, games people play. And you do not have to play. You can wear the mask, you can participate, but you do not have to believe it. You can know underneath it all that you are not your job, You are not your status. You are not your reputation. You are something deeper. Something that was there before the mask and will be there after. And when you remember that, when you reconnect with that deeper self, the whole game loses its grip. You stop needing external validation. You stop performing, you stop pretending, and you start living from a place of authenticity. Not because it is more successful, but because it is more real. Let your shoulders drop. You do not need to be anyone other than who you are. Right now, in this moment, the mask can stay, but you, the one underneath, can finally breathe. Chapter 31: Technology and Inner Noise. The modern world is loud, not just physically loud, mentally loud. Notifications, messages, news, updates, endless streams of information flooding your attention every moment of every day. And your mind, which evolved to focus on one thing at a time, is overwhelmed. Alan Watts did not live in the age of smartphones, but he saw the beginning of it. He saw television, he saw advertising, he saw the rise of mass media, and he warned, this will fragment you. Because every time your attention is pulled away, you lose a piece of yourself. Every time you scroll, you lose presence. Every time you react to a notification, you lose stillness. And over time, you forget what it feels like to just be, without input, without stimulation, without distraction. You become addicted to the noise, and the silence, the stillness becomes uncomfortable. So you reach for the phone, you check the news, you scroll, you fill the space. But the space is where life happens. The space is where you meet yourself, and without it, you are just a collection of reactions, a bundle of reflexes, a mind without a center. This is not a moral judgment. This is just what happens when you live in constant stimulation. You lose the ability to be bored. And boredom is where creativity lives, where insight lives, where rest lives. You lose the ability to sit with discomfort. And discomfort is where growth happens. You lose the ability to be alone with your own thoughts. And that aloneness is where you discover who you actually are. Alan Watts would say, the cure is simple but not easy. Turn it off, put it down, step away. Not forever, but for moments, for hours, for days. And in that silence, let the noise settle. Let the mind stop racing. Let the body stop reacting. Let awareness return, because awareness is always there. Underneath the noise, underneath the distraction, underneath the endless scroll. It is just waiting for you to stop and notice, feel the weight of your own body. You are here, not in the news, not in the feed, not in the past or the future. Here, now. And that here, That now is the only place where anything real has ever happened. Chapter 32: Simplicity and Direct Experience. Life is simple, not easy, but simple. You are here, you are breathing, you are alive. Everything else is extra. Commentary, story, mental noise. Alan Watts pointed to this over and over. He said, "The answers you are looking for are not complicated. They are right in front of you. But you miss them because you are looking past them, looking for something more impressive, something more profound. You want enlightenment to be dramatic. You want peace to come with fireworks. You want meaning to arrive in a thunderclap of realization. But it does not work that way. Enlightenment is just seeing what is, without the story, without the commentary, without the need for it to be anything other than what it is. Peace is just the absence of inner conflict, the moment you stop arguing with reality. Meaning is just presence, being fully here, fully alive, fully engaged with this moment. And you do not need to search for any of it. You just need to stop searching and notice. Notice the breath. Notice the body. Notice the sounds around you. Notice the space. That is it. That is the whole teaching. Everything else is just elaboration, different ways of pointing to the same thing. You are here now, and that is enough. You do not need to become enlightened. You are already the awareness in which enlightenment appears. You do not need to find peace. You are the space in which peace and chaos both arise. You do not need to create meaning. You are meaning, alive, experiencing, being. And when you see that, when you stop looking for something more and just rest in what is, the search ends. Not because you found what you were looking for, but because you realized you were never missing anything. This is the simplicity Alan Watts kept pointing to. Not a technique, not a practice, not a philosophy, just this. Right now, nothing more, nothing less. Let your jaw soften. You are here, and that is the whole point. Chapter 33: Living from Awareness. Most people live from thought. They wake up in the morning and immediately the thoughts start. What needs to be done? What went wrong yesterday? What might go wrong today? And they follow those thoughts. They believe them. They become them. And so they live in a state of constant mental activity, constant planning, constant worry. But Alan Watts pointed to another way. Living from awareness, not from thought, but from the space in which thought appears. This is not about stopping thoughts. That is impossible and unnecessary. It is about recognizing that you are not the thoughts. You are the awareness noticing them. And when you live from that awareness, when you make decisions from that space, when you respond from that stillness, everything changes. You stop reacting, you start responding. You stop being driven by fear. You start moving from clarity. You stop living in your head. You start living in your body, in the moment, in reality. This is not a mystical state. It is not something you achieve after years of meditation. It is something you can do right now. Just notice. Notice that you are aware. Notice that awareness is here. And then, instead of following the next thought, just stay in the noticing for one breath, for two, for as long as you can. And from that space, act, not from the story, not from the fear, not from the should or the must. From presence, from clarity, from the deep knowing that is always there when you stop thinking long enough to listen. This is what it means to live from awareness. And it is not easy. The mind will pull you back. The thoughts will come. The habits will reassert themselves. But each time you notice, you return. Each time you choose awareness over thought, you strengthen the muscle. And over time, it becomes natural. Not effortless, but natural. You live more from stillness, more from presence, more from the ground of being itself. And that is when life stops being a problem you need to solve and starts being an experience you get to have. Notice the air moving in and out. You are aware right now, and that awareness is all you need. Everything else will take care of itself. Chapter 34, Integrating Insight Daily. Understanding something once is not enough. You can have a profound realization, see clearly, feel deeply, know with certainty that you are not your thoughts, and then wake up the next day and forget it all. This is normal. This is how the mind works. Insight fades. Old patterns return. The ego reasserts itself. And so, the practice is not about having one big realization, it is about returning. Again and again. It is about integrating what you have seen into your daily life, into the mundane, into the ordinary. Alan Watts said, Zen does not confuse spirituality with thinking about God while one is peeling potatoes. Zen spirituality is just to peel the potatoes. That is integration. It is not about having profound experiences on a meditation cushion. It is about bringing awareness into the kitchen, into the commute, into the conversation with your partner, into the moment when you are tired and stressed and do not want to be present. That is where the real work happens. And it is not glamorous. It is not exciting. It is just life. But when you bring awareness to life, to the small moments, the repetitive tasks, the difficult emotions, that is when transformation happens. Not all at once, slowly, gradually, over years. You notice a thought and you do not believe it. You feel anxiety and you do not fight it. You hear the inner critic and you do not obey it. Small moments, small choices, small returns to presence. And over time, those small moments add up. They change you, not into someone else, but into a clearer version of yourself. Someone who is less reactive, less identified, less lost in thought. Someone who is more here, more alive, more free. And that is the point. Not to become enlightened in some distant future, but to be a little more awake today than you were yesterday. That is enough. Feel the weight of your body where it rests. You do not need to be perfect. You just need to keep returning to awareness, to presence, to the simple truth that you are here now. And that is the only place anything real can happen. Chapter 35, Freedom Beyond Thought. Freedom is not the absence of thought. It is the recognition that you are not bound by thought. Thoughts will come. They will always come. As long as you are alive, the mind will produce thoughts. But you do not have to believe them. You do not have to follow them. You do not have to let them define you. That is freedom. Alan Watts spent his life pointing to this. He said, "The thinker is not separate from the thought, and the thought is not you. You are the awareness in which both the thinker and the thought appear. And awareness is free. It has always been free. It cannot be bound. It cannot be controlled. It simply is." And when you realize that, when you see it clearly, you stop struggling. You stop trying to fix your thoughts. You stop trying to become someone else. You stop waiting for the moment when you finally have it all figured out, because you realize there is nothing to figure out. You are already free. You just forgot. And the remembering is not a process. It is a recognition. Right now, you are free. Right now, you are whole. Right now, you are enough. Not because you have achieved something, but because that is what you are. Underneath all the thoughts, underneath all the stories, underneath all the fear, you are awareness. You are space. You are the sky that holds the weather without being touched by it. And when you see that, when you rest in that, the search ends. Not because you found what you were looking for, but because you realized you were never lost. This is the freedom Alan Watts pointed to. Not a freedom you earn, but a freedom you recognize. And it is here, right now, in this moment. You do not need to go anywhere. You do not need to become anyone. You just need to see, and in that seeing, you are free. Let your shoulders drop. There is nowhere to go, nothing to become, no one to impress. You are free. You have always been free. And that freedom is not something you will experience someday. It is what you are right now. Chapter 36. Closing. The mind at ease. So, here we are, at the end of a long conversation. And maybe you fell asleep somewhere along the way. That is fine. That is what this was for. Or maybe you are still here, still listening, still following the thread. Either way, this is the moment to return to where we started. The mind that will not stop thinking. And now, after all these hours, maybe you see it differently. Not as a problem, not as something that needs to be fixed, but as a natural process. Like breathing, like the weather. Thoughts come, thoughts go. And you, the awareness watching, are always here, calm, steady, free. Alan Watts spent his life pointing to this simple truth. And it is so simple that most people miss it. You are not your thoughts. You are the space in which thoughts appear. And that space has never been disturbed. It has never been anxious. It has never been lost. It is here, now, always. And when you remember that, when you rest in that, the mind begins to ease. Not because you forced it, not because you figured it out, but because you stopped fighting it. You let the thoughts be there. You let the feelings move. You let life unfold. And in that letting, something shifts. The restlessness softens. The urgency fades. The need to control everything loosens its grip. And what remains is just this. You, here, now, breathing, alive, aware. And that is enough. It has always been enough. Feel the air moving in and out. You do not need to think about anything right now. You do not need to solve anything. You do not need to become anything. You can just be. And in that being, you will find what you have been looking for all along. Not peace as the absence of noise, but peace as the presence of awareness. Not freedom as the absence of thought, but freedom as the recognition that you are not bound by thought. Not rest as the absence of activity, but rest as the presence of acceptance. You are here. You have always been here, and there is nowhere else you need to be. Let your body sink into whatever is beneath you. Let the weight go. Let the thoughts move. Let the night hold you, and know, deeply know, that you are safe. Not because nothing bad will ever happen, but because awareness itself is untouched by what happens. And you are that awareness. You have always been that awareness, and you will always be that awareness. This is what Alan Watts spent his life trying to say, in 100 different ways, through thousands of talks and writings. And it all comes down to this. You are not the wave. You are the ocean. You are not the cloud. You are the sky. You are not the thought. You are the space in which thought appears. And that space, that awareness, is who you are. It is what you have always been, and it is what you will always be. Rest in that, and let everything else go.